My phone screen cracked against the concrete as it slipped from my hands. There they were, my entire family on a private beach in Maui, champagne glasses raised, designer sunglasses gleaming, the caption reading, "Finally together, #family forever." The timestamp showed 4:47 p.m. Our ceremony had ended at 3:30 p.m., and here I was still in my wedding suit. The sound of the reception behind me, Natalie's family laughing, our friends toasting, suddenly felt miles away. My vision tunneled to that single image. My parents, sister, aunts, even my dad's business partner, who wasn't even blood, all posing like a catalog photo while I'd spent the morning adjusting my cufflinks and wondering why nobody from my side had arrived. My name is Marcus, I'm 32 and a business co-owner. This is the story of how I learned to cut ties with surgical precision. That morning, I'd received a text from my mother. "Don't expect anyone to show. Best of luck." No context, no explanation. I'd stared at those words in the small dressing room at our coastal venue, actually checking the sender twice like maybe I'd misread something. When the ceremony started, their empty seats felt like missing teeth in a smile. But seeing this photo, this deliberate, orchestrated celebration happening parallel to my wedding, the betrayal crystallized into something sharper. They hadn't just forgotten or gotten busy. They'd planned this. Maui didn't happen overnight. Private beaches required reservations. This was intentional. I took a screenshot of the post, then walked back inside to find Natalie dancing with her father, completely radiant. Her family had traveled from 3 different states to be here. They'd given toasts, cried during the vows, decorated the reception hall with handmade centerpieces. Real love looked like showing up. I kissed my wife on the cheek and danced until midnight. Then I went quiet. The next Monday morning, I drove from our hotel to my office, still processing the weekend's betrayal. I sat staring at the business charter on my computer screen. My name was listed as co-founder and managing partner of Hartwell Enterprises, the consulting firm my father and I had built over 10 years. I controlled the corporate accounts, managed the assets, handled the financial infrastructure they'd all grown comfortable depending on. Over the years, I'd quietly co-signed my sister's mortgage when she couldn't qualify a loan, and maintained various expense accounts that covered everything from their phone bills to vacation flights. By noon, I'd filed paperwork to remove myself from the business entity. The legal team confirmed the changes would be processed within 48 hours. By 4 p.m., I'd systematically frozen every corporate expense account tied to the family: phones, gas, flights, hotels, the automatic payments that funded their lifestyle. I timed it to hit them midweek, right as they were wrapping up their celebration. By that evening, the group chat exploded. My father texted first, then my sister, then the calls started flooding in. I ignored every single one. Instead, I was sitting on my couch with my wife, eating leftover wedding cake and watching her sort through gift cards from her relatives. People who actually cared about us. Finally, I sent one message back. Perfect timing. Then I turned my phone off and opened a bottle of wine. The silence lasted exactly 1 week. That's how long it took for them to crack. 7 days of no responses to their frantic messages, no acknowledgement of their calls, no explanation for why the expense accounts had suddenly dried up. Just me, quietly dismantling the financial safety net they'd never realized they were standing on. Natalie noticed something had shifted, but she didn't pry. She knew if I hadn't said anything yet, it wasn't ready to be spoken. We were still finding our rhythm as newlyweds. Morning coffee routines, grocery shopping together, her freelance projects filling the apartment with creative energy I'd been missing for years. Then came the knock at 6:50 a.m. on a Tuesday, sharp, aggressive pounding that rattled the door frame. I was in the kitchen in boxers and a t-shirt halfway through my first cup of coffee, but I didn't have to guess who it was. My father stood on my doorstep, red-faced and still carrying his Maui tan, like evidence of his crime. He wore his usual power suit, the armor he thought gave him control over every conversation. He didn't ask to come in, didn't ask how I was, just launched straight into his accusations. He shouted about humiliation, sabotage, how freezing the accounts mid-trip had left them scrambling to cover expenses with personal cards. My sister had been counting on those funds for her mortgage deposit. My aunt had planned a property purchase. I'd detonated the entire family structure, he claimed. I stood there sipping coffee, watching his face get redder with each word. When he finally paused for breath, I answered steady and calm. I gave you every chance. You made your decision." Something shifted. The anger turned desperate. He accused me of overreacting, being dramatic, insisted that missing one event shouldn't tear a family apart. He kept calling it a misunderstanding, as if planning a family vacation during my wedding had been some kind of scheduling error. He said I owed him because he'd built the business, given me opportunities, made me who I was, that without him, I was nothing. That's when it clicked. We'd never been speaking the same language. I told him the charter changes were permanent. My shares were now under holding control. If they wanted the company whole, they could buy me out at full market value, upfront in cash. The corporate cards were done. The perks frozen. Car leases, travel accounts, the expense structure that had quietly funded their lifestyle for years. All of it gone. "What do you expect us to do?" he demanded. "Figure it out," I said, and closed the door. He banged on it for another 5 minutes, shouting threats I'd heard versions of before. I didn't open it. I sat back down, finished my coffee, and looked through wedding photos. Every single one showed happiness. None of them featured my family, but they didn't need to. That afternoon, I called my attorney and sealed everything off. Revoked access permissions, closed shared accounts, canceled the auto-pay systems my sister had relied on for her new house. The one I'd quietly co-signed for a year ago, when she couldn't get approved a loan. They'd lived off my infrastructure for years without even noticing it. Vacations appeared, bills got paid, investments flowed smoothly. I'd been the engine, keeping everything running while they posted beach photos and complained about my wife not fitting their image. Now the engine was off. The collapse started small. A few bounced payments here, a declined card there. The company lease car got flagged. Then the office space rent went past due. My sister's new mortgage hit problems when her income source got questioned, and I wasn't there to back it up anymore. 3 weeks after the wedding, my sister called, not to congratulate me, not to apologize, just to say, "You can't do this to us." Us? I let it ring out and blocked the number. Meanwhile, Natalie and I were building something real. We'd started having dinner on the couch most nights, talking about her freelance projects, my plans for a new venture. She didn't know all the details of what was happening with my family. I didn't think she needed to carry that weight. What mattered was we were solid. A month later, our accountant called. The quarterly reports were a mess, he said. Asked if I'd really pulled all access to everything. "Yes," I said. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I wondered when you'd stop carrying them." He was right. I'd been carrying them for years. By spring, the business quietly folded. No dramatic bankruptcy, no headlines, just silence. The infrastructure they'd depended on simply wasn't there anymore, and they couldn't rebuild it without me. Through mutual contacts, I learned my father had moved to a smaller apartment and taken a consulting job with a former client. My sister had to sell her house and move back to a rental, though she'd found steady work at a marketing firm. The last communication came in the form of a letter from my father. 3 pages of excuses and selective nostalgia, ending with, "We were right to protect the family from outsiders." Even after everything, he still saw Natalie as the threat. I threw the letter away without finishing it. That summer, Natalie and I took a road trip with no destination in mind. Just us, the open road, and the freedom that comes from cutting away everything that wasn't real. One night, camping by a lake in Montana, she asked if I'd ever talk to them again. "They already said goodbye," I told her. "They just didn't realize it." 6 months later, something unexpected arrived in my mailbox, a letter from a trust attorney named Jeremy. Apparently, my grandfather had set up a contingency fund years ago, one that activated when I turned 35, with the condition that I have no financial ties to the family business. The attorney had been monitoring public business filings and confirmed I'd met the requirement when I officially severed all connections. I'd fulfilled that requirement. The inheritance wasn't just money. Properties, stocks, even a warehouse full of artwork I didn't know existed. But more than that, there was a typed note from my grandfather. "If they ever choose themselves over you, walk away and don't turn back. I'll be waiting on the other side." Natalie cried when I told her, not because of the money, but because finally, someone from my family had chosen us. Now we're building something new, not from legacy or revenge, but from the understanding that real family shows up. They celebrate your victories instead of creating competing ones. They include your spouse instead of calling her an outsider. They recognize that love isn't conditional on convenience. That beach photo is still out there somewhere, archived on social media with its perfect caption about family togetherness. But I've got something better. Wedding photos full of people who actually wanted to be there, and a life built with someone who chooses me every single day. The business they thought they couldn't live without. Turns out they were right. My relationship with them is permanently severed. No reconciliation, no forgiveness, no looking back. They made their choice on my wedding day, and I made mine in response. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.